What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the rocket launcher buffs to Destiny 2 coming with this season, and we will be breaking down all the numbers with the buff included, and just be going overall if I think they're going to be meta or not in this coming season and the future for Destiny. If you missed the recent TWAB that had the sandbox changes for the season, pretty much what it said for rockets is they just get a 30% buff, then the exotics are going to be tuned individually, so we're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen to all the exotics as of now, but all the legendaries should get a 30% increase to their damage straight off the bat. And the reason is that rocket launchers have fallen behind other heavy weapons, probably in terms of usage rates, which is what they usually look at, and that is why they're giving them a little bit of buff, which should really shake up the heavy slot coming into the season. And before we get into the video, my code AIR on G Fuel is going to be 30% off through the 8th, so definitely go ahead and restock on your favorite flavors before the season begins, that way you're ready to go. You can go ahead and click the link in the comments description, it'll take you straight to their store and automatically apply my discount code. And now starting with the video, as we found out last season, rockets do less damage to bosses than they do other types of enemies, so testing them on Carl will not be a good way of testing it because he is not a boss, so the numbers won't be quite correct. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Lake of Shadows boss and test on this guy instead, and obviously the numbers are a little bit different than the Carl numbers, so we're going to take every number we see in this video and divide by this number on screen to get to the lost sector numbers. That way the comparison to different weapons I've tested in the past will still be 1-to-1. So first, looking at a 15 RPM, looking at impact casing just to see what impact casing does on rocket launchers. Everyone says it's a must-have perk, but let's see what it actually does. Without it, we hit these tumors right here, then we go ahead and put on impact casing, and nothing changed, same rocket. The impact itself will go up slightly, the explosion number will stay the same, so it's going to be a 10% increase to the impact number, or 2.2% overall to the total damage of each shot, so not really that important, but it is still the best in that slot. Then if we have cluster bombs, which once again have been nerfed multiple times, on average, let's say they hit 4 times, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. That will take the total damage of a 15 RPM to 43,000 right now, but after the 30% buff, that will go up to 56,111. Now, if we look at a 20 RPM with impact casing and cluster bombs once again, as you see, it's going to be the exact same numbers as the 15 RPM, which is kind of weird. It's always been like that since the game came out. The different legendary rocket launcher RPM types do not impact their damage at all. They all do the exact same damage, as you see with a 25 RPM with cluster bombs and impact casing once again, exact same numbers. So all legendary rockets will hit for 56,111 after the 30% increase, which is definitely starting to look good, but I'm just not quite sure why after all this time there are 3 different types of rocket launchers if they all do the same damage. And now we look at the rate of fire of the rockets. Once again, they only have 1 magazine, which means their rate of fire will be mostly tied to the reload speed, and if we max out reload speed with Lunafaction and also rocket launcher loader, I believe all 3 will have pretty much the same DPS also. And for all these, we're going to be testing 2 shots and also 5 shots, so kind of get a burst and also a sustained damage number. So first, with the 15 RPM over 2 shots takes 2.136 seconds. Now we do the same thing over 5 shots with the 15 RPM. It's going to take quite a bit longer, and this will become like the sustained DPS number. It's going to take 8.628 seconds, meaning the 2-shot DPS is 52,000 and the 5-shot goes down to 32,000. So that burst is actually pretty good, and it falls off quite a bit for the sustain. Now we do the same with the 20 RPM. As I stated, since they're all 1 mags, the rate of fire is mostly reload speed, and since we're maxing it out, the numbers are pretty much identical. So the 15, 20, and 25 have the same damage, pretty much have the same rate of fire. So I still don't know why in 2021 we have 3 different types of legendary rockets. I don't really get it. How can they go through these different buffs for rockets and not think about changing the RPM types and make them actually do something? I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. As you see, the 25 is pretty much the exact same numbers, just within rounding errors. So pretty much no point even showing the DPS numbers for the 25s. They're going to be the exact same as the 15 and 20. So far the 3 different types of rockets are exactly the same. And as we saw, the burst DPS numbers on the rockets were pretty good. The sustain fell off quite a bit, but that is where the demolition comes into play. We're going to be able to reload the rockets from throwing a grenade. And for most rockets, demo's in the same slot as cluster bombs, which means we'll be giving up that little bit extra damage, which isn't a lot. Without it, we'll still be hitting after the buff over 50,000. But what demo will allow us to do is shoot a lot quicker. So for example, on any class, you can easily just shoot once, throw a grenade, shoot again, and that will make the burst DPS of this weapon way higher at over 67,000 DPS for the 2 shots. Then if you include in your grenade damage, you know that might be almost 70,000. So that is looking really good for burst DPS. Then there's some cool tricks you can do. On Warlock, you can use some bracers or even something like Starfire Protocol, which I've shown off in the past. On Hunter, there's all kinds of different combos you can do with the Marksman Dodge. Then also the Hunter Exotic Gauntlets that allow you to reload on melee hit. So just showing off with some bracers, you just get a melee kill. You can shoot up to 6 rockets in a row. Versus testing resistance to 5 to compare to the previous 5 DPS numbers. And that will only take 5.5 seconds, being DPS over 5 rockets is 44.7 thousand, and that is not including the grenade damage, so depending on which combo you're doing, that could go up to almost 50,000. Then on top of that, if you guys remember the Heretic, which will be coming back this season, this can come with Demo and Cluster. We're not quite sure if that will be the same roles this time around, but if you can get that, that'll just be a little bit more damage on top of that. So over like 5+ rockets, you'll still be doing over 50,000 DPS with the right combo in this rocket. If we also look at the total ammo of these rockets, the 15 RPM will hold 7, the 20 RPM will only hold 6, so they're kind of like 80 RPM shotguns where they just randomly hold less than the one above and below it, which makes not quite a lot of sense given the fact that they all have the same impact and same rate of fire. So the 20s are just pretty much worse. The 25s also hold 7, so it's 7, 6, and 7. And then with double reserves, you're going to get 1 rocket per reserve perk, which will take us to 9, 8, and 9. Then you can also use field prep, which will give you 2 more on top of that. So that'll take you all the way up to 11, 10 with the 20, then 11 with the 25. So the total damage output of the 15 and 25 RPM is going to be over 617,000. And with the 20 RPM, it's going to be 561,000. And both those numbers are really good. Obviously, that is with like double reserves and field prep. But if you spec into these rockets, as we see, the numbers are going to be actually really good. And that brings me to the exotic rockets. As we stated in the beginning of the video, we're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen to each of them yet. They're going to be all individually fine-tuned. But what we can do is look at the damage of them right now. That way, when the season comes out, we can compare it and see what actually happened. So first with the Eyes of Tomorrow, this will shoot 6 rockets. With the buff, it's going to be hitting for a max of 19,747 per hit. We times that by 6, then do the conversion back to the lost sector number. It's gonna be 85,646, which is still a lot, and depending on exactly what they do to this rocket, it'll probably be at least still one of the best burst weapons in the game, if not the best. Then up next is the Truth, which is pretty much just a regular rocket with tripod on it, and it's only going to hit for the 40,000 number because it has grenades and horseshoes and can never actually impact a target. And converting that number back to the lost sector number, that'll be 29,280, which is not that good at all. And then we have the Two-Tailed Fox, which will shoot 2 rockets per shot, and this one I think could be a sleeper pick depending on what they do to it. Right now it's gonna be hitting for a little bit less than Eyes of Tomorrow, but keep in mind the Eyes of Tomorrow was with the perk. This will always be doing that 59,000, so that is gonna be pretty good depending on what they do to it or not. Two-Tailed Fox is already a pretty good pick as is, so it's probably only gonna get better. Then we also have the Deathbringer, which is definitely slept on a lot. It has a mechanic where the farther the projectiles fall, the more damage they do, so it's kind of awkward to use, but if you can use it correctly and maximize it, there will be 7 of these different projectiles that can hit a target for up to almost 19,000. And once again, if we convert the number back to the lost sector number, that's gonna be way higher than even Eyes of Tomorrow at almost 96,000, which is a lot. So depending on what happens there, that could be a really, really good pick. Then finally we have Coil, one of the classics of year 1. And this one only does 46,000 as of now, so depending on what they do, it could be good. Coil's always been good at kind of everything, but not necessarily great at boss damage. You know, it could be useful for some things, but might not be the best for boss DPS. So overall, do I think rockets will be meta next season? Yes, the simple answer is just straight up yes. If we look at the legendary rocket numbers, their burst DPS is going to be extremely good. Then with the right combo and setup, their sustain will be also extremely good too. Depending on if the Heretic can get Cluster and Demo at the same time, you'll easily be able to pull off over 50,000 DPS for like the entire reserves of the weapon, which is really good, higher than pretty much any other legendary weapon in the game. Then for their burst DPS of like 2 or 3 rockets, you're still going to be doing roughly like 70,000 DPS, which is once again pretty much unmatched in legendary weapons. And given the fact that swords are getting a 15% nerf, which we'll be talking about in tomorrow's video, I mean, that just gives more room to these legendary rockets. Then with exotic rockets, once again, we're not quite sure exactly what will happen, but as of right now, Eyes of Tomorrow is already one of the best burst options in the game. Same with Deathbringer and kind of Two-Tailed Fox. So depending on what they do to those could be really, really good. So yeah, I definitely think rockets will be meta if you want to spec into them. The issue is, I know there's going to be a lot of players that don't want to make their entire build around, you know, using Sunbracers or Starfire Protocol to be able to shoot off like 5 or 6 rockets straight, because of the fact that people are going to naturally use whatever is easy and comfortable for them. So we'll just have to see how they feel and they play out next season. Just because something is on paper really good does not mean it will always be used across the board. It might not be good in a lot of situations. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Make sure to use my code AIR for 30% off on G Fuel for the next few days. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.